It was a moment that sent shockwaves across the globe. Naomi Judd, the golden voice of country music, gone. But as headlines faded, deeper questions began to rise. The truth behind her final hours wasn't just tragic, it was haunting. An autopsy report that read more like a whispered confession than a medical summary. Scars both physical and emotional. A handwritten note that, according to sources, pointed blame at her own daughter. It wasn't just the end of a life, it was the unraveling of a legacy that had long been held together by resilience and silence. Behind every spotlight is a shadow. Naomi Judd's story wasn't just about stardom, it was about survival. Millions, she was a radiant performer, but to those closest, she was someone quietly breaking under the weight of years of internal torment. As tributes poured in, one haunting question lingered. What was really going on behind closed doors in the Judd family? The answer, it turns out, is far more complicated than anyone imagined. Long before the world came to know her as Naomi, she was simply Diana Ellen Judd, a young nurse working long shifts in Nashville, navigating single motherhood, and carrying burdens no one could see. Fame didn't come knocking. She fought for every note, every spotlight. When she joined her daughter Winona on stage for the first time, it wasn't just a duet, it was destiny unfolding. Their harmonies struck something primal in audiences, something tender and powerful. Together, they became the Judds, and in what felt like an instant, they lit up the country music scene with a warmth that seemed too sincere to be anything but magic. From the early 80s into the 90s, the Judds were everywhere. Radio, television, stages packed with adoring fans. Songs like Mama He's Crazy and Why Not Me didn't just climb charts, they embedded themselves in people's lives. Every lyric sounded like it was written just for you. They weren't just stars, they were a symbol of family, hope, and strength in a changing world. But beneath that polished image was a bond far more fragile than it appeared. Naomi and Winona's mother-daughter relationship wasn't always the beautiful harmony their music suggested. Their love was undeniable, but so was the friction. Fame strained them, and personal pain pushed them further apart. Behind the curtain, there were arguments, emotional blow-ups, and painful silences that stretched for months. Their smiles for the cameras were real, but often hard-earned. Naomi's relationship with her younger daughter, Ashley, the rising actress, was fraught with emotional complexities. Ashley would later speak about a childhood shaped by instability, by long stretches of loneliness and unpredictable chaos. She described a house where the silence often felt heavier than any words ever spoken. And at the center of it all was Naomi, a woman who gave everything she had to her family and career, even as her own inner world was crumbling. Naomi battled with severe mental health challenges for much of her life. Depression, anxiety, and eventually a diagnosis of bipolar disorder cast long shadows over her brightest moments. She never pretended to be okay when she wasn't, and she was one of the few stars of her era willing to speak openly about it. Her honesty was groundbreaking, even courageous. But being vocal wasn't the same as being healed. Her struggles didn't vanish with fame. They just became harder to hide. After a powerful run in the music world, Naomi stepped back from the stage in 1991 after being diagnosed with hepatitis C, a silent illness she contracted during her nursing days. Doctors told her she had only a few years. She defied expectations, entered remission, and turned her pain into advocacy. She became a voice for those grappling with invisible battles, urging people to take mental health serious. She was a fighter, but even the strongest fighters grow weary. Then came 2022. Naomi Judd, now decades past her chart-topping days, announced one final tour with Winona. Farewell, a celebration of everything they had built. For fans, it was a dream. For Naomi, perhaps, a burden she wasn't ready to carry. Those close to her would later say she seemed off, agitated, withdrawn, emotionally unsteady. But no one imagined the depth of her despair. April 30th, just one day before she was set to be inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, Naomi Judd was found lifeless in her home. It was a moment that stunned even those who knew of her struggles. When the autopsy was made public, the truth it revealed was both clinical and deeply personal. It confirmed what many feared, but it also exposed hidden truths no one was prepared for. The report described more than just her final moments. It was a window into years of suffering. It outlined her physical condition, substances found in her system, and perhaps most devastating, a handwritten note, allegedly addressed to Winona, expressing deep anguish. Why would someone hours away from being honored at the pinnacle of her career choose to walk away? The answer may lie in a lifetime of emotional weight too heavy to bear. The official record stated that she was found in her home at exactly 10:57 a.m. Paramedics arrived and transported her to Williamson Medical Center, where she was pronounced dead at 12:35 p.m. The next day, she was scheduled to stand beside her daughter as they were inducted into the Hall of Fame. Instead, Winona stood alone, holding back tears. The autopsy details, while forensic in nature, painted a picture of a woman who had been preparing for that final act. From the condition of the scene to the absence of any signs of outside involvement, everything pointed to a deeply personal decision made in solitude. The note, the scars, the substances, they all told the story of someone who had been carrying more than most could endure. Even the physical findings felt intimate. Scars from past surgeries, cosmetic enhancements, pigment tattoos, meant to keep up appearances under the public eye. Naomi Judd may have looked radiant on stage, but her body bore the imprint of years spent trying to maintain a version of herself the world demanded. She had breast implants, a surgical facelift, tattoos to enhance her eyebrows and lips, and cosmetic work many never knew about. These weren't just vanity choices. They were part of the armor she wore every day. But armor doesn't make someone invincible, and in Naomi's case, it may have only hidden the pain longer. Now, with her gone, what remains isn't just the music, the mystery, the heartbreak, and the undeniable truth that even the brightest stars sometimes burn out in silence. Instead, life handed them a detour they never saw coming. And it wasn't just the physical change. It was the emotional weight. Raw, sudden, unrelenting. Winona found herself juggling grief and love, memory and survival. One moment she was standing on stage. The next, she was holding her husband up in a shower, whispering through tears. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. The silence between the spotlight and the living room grew louder. Fans couldn't help but wonder, how does someone keep going when everything they love starts slipping through their fingers? There's something uniquely haunting about seeing someone the world once saw as invincible, now visibly weathered by life. Winona had spent years performing with grace, showing up strong even in her mother's final days. But now, the facade was cracking, and what lay underneath was far more human than anyone expected. This wasn't just a story about a country music legacy. It was about the slow unraveling of a life behind the fame. Behind closed doors, the weight of caregiving became a test of faith and love. Her husband, once full of rhythm, energy, and spark, now needed help dressing, walking, and simply getting through the day. Nona never walked away. Instead, she leaned in, more tired, more uncertain, but more determined than ever. "It's what you do," she said. "You love them harder." As painful as it was, there was a strange kind of beauty in that. A woman once defined by her duets and legacy, now finding purpose in the quietest of moments. Brushing her husband's hair, adjusting his wheelchair, or watching old concert videos together just to feel close to who they used to be. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. And sometimes, real is the most powerful story you can tell. Just when the wounds were starting to scar over, another surprise arrived. One that sparked headlines across the entertainment world. Winona Judd was named to co-host the Country Music Celebration Special, a star-studded event that would bring together legends, newcomers, and the industry's biggest names. Sounded like a return to form, but behind the scenes, it stirred something deeper. Was she ready? Could she carry the Judd name alone, in front of millions, without the woman who had made the name iconic? These questions haunted her as rehearsals began. She would look out at the empty seats, remembering the nights she and Naomi had owned those stages. Now, she stood there alone, and for a moment it felt like the echoes of her mother's voice were still in the rafters. But even then, the show had to go on. Fans watching the televised event were captivated not just by her voice, but by the emotion in her eyes. There was strength, yes, but also loss. And for the first time, the country music world saw Winona not just as a daughter or a singer, but as a woman carrying the full weight of legacy and loss. And just when it seemed the storm had passed, a new wave of drama made headlines. Rumors swirled around a secret legal battle involving Naomi's estate, alleged disagreement over royalties, and unpublished material that left many wondering if the family was again fractured behind the scenes. While no one from the Judd family confirmed the reports, the whispers were enough to stir old wounds among fans who had watched this family battle heartbreak in public for decades. The speculation was relentless. Could the estate be divided without more pain? Was there more to Naomi's note than had been revealed? Did Wynonna still hold resentment, or just sorrow? And through it all, Wynonna stayed mostly quiet. Her public statements focused on music, healing, and advocacy. But that silence only fueled more curiosity. Sometimes the things we don't say echo louder than the ones we do. The reality, though, is that fame doesn't shield you from heartbreak. In fact, it magnifies it. For Wynonna, every performance, every interview, every public moment has become a delicate dance between honoring the past and surviving the present. There's something uniquely heartbreaking about watching someone continue on when their world has changed so drastically. But there's also something incredibly courageous about it, because Wynonna Judd hasn't just endured. She's transformed, from the daughter in a famous duo to the grieving woman beside a hospital bed, from a voice on the radio to a survivor of life's cruelest plot twists. And through it all, she keeps showing up, sometimes in tears, sometimes in silence, but always with that undeniable fire that made the Judd name legendary in the first place. Because behind every powerful stage moment is a story fans never see, and this one, full of loss, resilience, and raw humanity, is a reminder that even our brightest stars flicker in the dark, but some never burn out completely. When people hear that two sisters, both grieving the same mother, barely speak, the silence speaks louder than any argument ever could. And yet, the real story lies not in a dramatic feud, but in the quiet years of growing up apart while living under the same roof. It's a bond built on shared pain, yet frayed by time, responsibility, and conflicting life paths. Wynonna Judd, now a mother herself and the heartbeat of a household carrying more than its share of challenges, continues to face the world with a brave face, even as her private life remains weighted by caregiving, grief, and the raw truths that never make the headlines. What most people don't realize is that behind the curtain of country music royalty is a woman who's been holding together her home with nothing but sheer will. The crowd sees her sing, powerful and composed, but after the stage lights dim, she returns to the real stage, one where love looks less like poetry and more like lifting her husband into a chair. Yet, this isn't a tale of defeat. In fact, it's where the real strength lives. Because when everything hurts and no one is watching, Wynonna still shows up. That's not show business. That's survival. Cactus Moser's story, her husband, adds yet another layer of emotional gravity. After a tragic motorcycle accident left him physically impaired, no one expected what came next. But this wasn't a man ready to surrender. Instead, with only one functioning leg, he took to the ski slopes, daring nature and expectation alike. Doctors called it unbelievable. Wynonna called it typical of him. His refusal to give in reflected her own quiet defiance against the world's assumptions. Their love isn't wrapped in fantasy. It's rooted in choosing each other every single day, despite the heaviness they carry. Wynonna's world today looks nothing like the glamour of red carpets or sold-out arenas. It's filled with home-cooked meals, physical therapy sessions, and the kind of emotional labor most celebrities never talk about. And yet somehow she continues to carry her legacy forward. It's a brutal but beautiful truth. Applause fades fast, but real love, gritty, resilient love, sticks around when nobody's clapping. One fan said, "She gave us music when her heart was breaking." That's the kind of legacy you can't fake. And then there's the echo of silence that still lingers between Wynonna and Ashley. Living mere steps away on the same Tennessee land, they remain emotionally oceans apart. Ashley's life is global, traveling, campaigning, filming. Wynonna's is domestic, grounded, intimate, and demanding. They share history, but not a present. It's a haunting reminder that proximity doesn't always equal closeness. And in their case, it never really did. It started early. Wynonna left home at 18, swept up into the whirlwind of fame alongside Naomi, while Ashley stayed back, just 14, navigating a house marked by instability. Winona became the breadwinner. Ashley became the observer. Emotional gap between them, born in childhood, never truly closed. It wasn't about anger. It was about misaligned lives that kept drifting further, even as they stood on the same ground, one rising on stage, the other staying in the shadows, each coping in her own way. The emotional distance widened with each secret and revelation. Nana learned at 30 that the man she thought was her father was Ashley had known for years. Unevenness, that imbalance of truth, added another bruise to a family already scarred. Winona once described it as betrayal. Ashley saw it as just another fact of life. These contrasts, between knowing and not knowing, between sharing and withholding, continue to define their relationship today. Even their grief unfolded differently. Ashley composed statements, polished and precise, spotlighting Naomi's legacy and the importance of mental health awareness. Nana, on the other hand, could barely hold herself together during interviews. Paused, stammered, cried. Where Ashley found structure, Winona wrestled with memory. Her responses weren't opposites. They were reflections of two women shaped by the same storm, standing in different places when it passed. Now, as fans look to the Judd sisters and wonder why they don't reconcile, there's a deeper understanding to be found. Some distances aren't the result of fights. They're built from a lifetime of mismatched expectations and emotional weight that neither sister could carry alone. There was no dramatic blowout, just years of silence, and the occasional message sent from opposite corners of the world. As Winona once said, "We're broken and blessed, but mostly broken." And in that truth, perhaps we see the human side of celebrity most clearly. But while heartbreak and history define the emotional landscape of Winona's life, her financial world tells a different kind of story. One marked by resilience, savvy, and legacy. Over the years, she's accumulated a remarkable portfolio of luxury and success. Her garage has housed a range of high-end vehicles, from a Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon to a custom Cadillac Escalade. She's been spotted wearing Cartier watches, symbols of understated wealth. Her Nashville estate, a sprawling and secluded property, reflects both Southern charm and star-level opulence. Though she doesn't flaunt private jets like some stars, she's had access to them during tours and collaborations. Her business ventures have included music publishing rights, touring revenue, and a lucrative memoir deal. She also holds strong insurance policies covering her voice, her home, and even tour-related emergencies. Key financial lesson from Winona's journey: build quietly, protect fiercely, and let your work outlast the noise. In the end, Winona Judd's story isn't wrapped in glitter. It's carved from grit. Her fame didn't save her from life's brutal moments. It just put them on a stage. And yet, she never stopped showing up. For her fans, for her husband, for the memory of her mother, even when no one else sees it, even when it hurts. That's not just resilience. That's what legacy looks like. And there you have it, Debra Winger's roller coaster of a journey. From fierce on-screen icon to quiet rebel behind the Hollywood curtain, we dove deep into her unforgettable roles, her bold decisions to walk away at the height of fame, quiet power she now holds as an artist on her own terms. Her story isn't just about stardom. It's about knowing your worth, fighting for your peace, and rewriting the script when Hollywood tries to box you in. If you enjoyed that dive into Debra's dazzling yet defiant legacy, go ahead and hit that like button. Drop a comment with your favorite Winger performance. We're still torn between terms of endearment and Shadowlands. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our next deep dive into the legends and lifestyles that shaped Hollywood. Coming up, we've got some jaw-dropping stories you won't believe. Feuds, fame, and fortunes built on secrets. You'll want to stick around. And as for Debra Winger, didn't just play strong women. She was one, both on screen and off. Hollywood may have tried to fade her out, but Winger, she simply changed the lighting. See you in the next one.